Tommy Jaggi of Fansided here with NFL expert Marcus Mosher. We are entering a very dry spout in the NFL season, Marcus. This next month, we have to wait and kind of just sit back and fill the air with fodder until NFL training camps start. There might be a trade or two trickle in the meantime. But for now, what we want to do is break down the league leaders in for the awards this year for the 2025 NFL awards: MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie, as well as some of the projected stat leaders this year. And then Marcus and I are going to give our predictions and maybe a few dark horse candidates as well.
This is one of my favorite exercises of the year because it gives you a good chance to kind of project how you see the season unfolding and how you see these teams playing out. So we're going to talk about like the MVP award in a second, but that has been not only a statistical award, but you look back at the winners of that award over the last 10 years or so, those are all teams that won 11, 12, 13 games. So it's one of my favorite things to do because now we get to talk about what we expect to happen in the season. We're going to be wrong a million times here, but we might be right a couple times as well.
All right, Marcus, so let's get down to it. Last year, the MVP award was a two-way race essentially between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Got a little bit controversial. So, Marcus, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to kick it over to you first with all these, and then I'll bat the cleanup on this. What is your prediction for, first of all, let's talk about the MVP odds for this year, and then you give your prediction.
Yeah, so Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those guys actually have the same odds right now. They're plus 550, just depending on the sports book. Then you've got Joe Burrow slightly behind them. I think it's a safe bet to have Lamar Jackson as the favorite because every year that he's in this Todd Monken offense, he posts ridiculous numbers. We expect the Ravens to win double-digit games again this season. They've made improvements to their offensive line. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. They brought back Rashad Bateman. Zay Flowers going into year 3. Everything is set up for him to have a huge season. But Tommy, that's actually not who I'm picking to win the MVP. So I want your thoughts here.
I'll give you my thoughts because I think you're going to take the same guy that I might. But here's why I'm not picking Lamar this year. He has the MVP, a MVP under his belt already.
Two of them.
What he did last year, Marcus, wasn't good enough to win it. I don't know what can. And so I'm going with Joe Burrow as my MVP for the 2025 season. 4,900 passing yards, 43 passing touchdowns. As a passer, nobody was better in the NFL last year. And I think that if the Bengals are a game better, if they're a game better and they're not 9-8 and maybe they're 10-7, maybe they're 2 games better this year, that's enough for me. And knowing, and I hate to think that the AP voters think this way, Marcus, but with Josh Allen having one, Patrick Mahomes obviously has his MVPs. Lamar Jackson does. Who's the next best quarterback in the league or in that cluster right there? It's Joe Burrow, who doesn't have an MVP yet. And so I think everything is pointing to Burrow having that MVP caliber repeated season this year, posting similar numbers, and then taking home the award.
Here, I don't disagree with anything you said. Now, here's the problem with Joe Burrow. For Joe Burrow to win this award, his team needs to finish first in the AFC North. If you go back and look at the last 25 MVP winners, none of them came from a team that didn't win their division, right? And that's going to be the knock for Burrow here is if the Bengals, even like you said, if they go 10-7 and they're second in the division, I just don't think voters are going to vote him over Lamar Jackson or whoever, right? So that's where I struggle a little bit. Again, he's worthy of it. He's going to post big numbers. I'm going with Patrick Mahomes as the best value here at plus 700. I know the stats have been bad the last couple of years, and frankly, he has not played to his standard at all. But you talk about these teams that need to win double-digit games and likely 12 or 13. I think the Chiefs are going to do that. I think the weapons with Rashee Rice healthy now, Xavier Worthy in year 2, a healthy Hollywood Brown. I think he finally does have the weapons. And I don't think the defense is going to be as good. I think they're going to have to throw the ball more. I think Patrick Mahomes, especially after getting embarrassed in the Super Bowl, I think he's going to be ready to have one of these big seasons to remind everybody that he's the best quarterback in the league. I think Mahomes at plus 700 is my favorite bet on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. And the odds are stacked against Joe Burrow because if the Bengals don't win, like you said, that hasn't happened. But What if they're a 12-win team? What if they finish with the same record as the Ravens and
But do
don't
you
win
see
the
that?
division?
But do you
Like,
see that? Though? I think the
the
rosters,
defense is bad. The
the
defense is,
rosters are so far
which is
apart.
part of the reason why he's going to put up phenomenal numbers, though, too.
Yes,
Like, I would
yeah.
not be surprised if he gets 5,000 passing yards this year, which would be one of the few quarterbacks to do that. It's just that if the Bengals are even a little bit better, like he was the best pure passer in the NFL last year.
100%
And so if the Bengals are even just a little bit better, I think there's a chance that he could defy that. And again, you're getting him at plus 650. I still like those odds. I mean, I still think that that's good for a quarterback that's going to put up the numbers. I trust Burrow to put up a lot better numbers this year than I do Patrick Mahomes, even though I love Mahomes. It's just he hasn't had the volume like Burrow's had. He hasn't had the efficiency that Burrow's had. So, yeah, I would still hedge my bets for Joe Burrow here in the situation that he's in. But you said it. I mean, that defense is rough. It's looking really bad right now. So I'm not convinced they will be competitive enough. I am convinced he's going to put up incredible numbers, like top 10 all-time-ish numbers, which is what he had last year. I don't see any reason why he can't repeat that.
Unless it's injuries, but again, you can't really predict injuries when it comes to this stuff. But I'm going to give you one just deep sleeper here. If you want to go and try to get some value, Michael Penix is 60-1 on most sports books. And again, I know he's not Josh Allen or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, but if you were making the case, I think this Atlanta offense is going to be awesome this year. I think they're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. They played a division with really bad defenses. They play in a dome, so that will help. And I just think it's going to be easier for the Falcons to win double-digit games than some of these other teams, like, let's say, the Bengals, because the overall division is just not that strong. It's not going to be all that hard for someone like Penix to do it. If Michael Penix, who was averaging about 300 yards per game in his starts last year, can continue at that pace, I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up massive numbers. The Falcons win 10, 11 games, and he's right into that conversation. So at 60-1, I don't mind throwing a couple bucks on that.
Man, that is such a long shot. But you're right. I mean, could he have that projection this in year 2? Yeah, I think it's possible. Give me Dak for my dark horse candidate. Plus 3,000. They've got George Pickens now. They've got CeeDee Lamb. I know Brian Schottenheimer's offense are going to try to run the ball. I don't like their running situation personally, or at least the running backs they have there. But Dak, the year before last, before he had the injury that missed 9 games, he had 4,500 passing yards, 36 touchdowns. Give me Dak at plus 3,000. I think that's a lot safer bet, Marcus, than taking.
It's just that the NFC East is going to be way harder than the NFC South is, right? So it's, again, I don't see Dallas finishing first in the NFC East, right? And if they're
it changes all the time, though. Like the Eagles have never repeated, right? In how long?
Well, since the early 2000s. But even Washington, I think, has a chance to be better than Dallas, right? I mean, they were last year. They made it to the NFC Championship game. I don't disagree in the stats. I think Dak could put up some big numbers again this year. But I feel like if Dak didn't win it in 2023, when the MVP of the league only had 24 touchdowns, he's probably not going to do it again. But again, it's the value 35-1 or 30-1. It's not terrible.
Maybe they'll kind of give him his makeup there, because Dak did finish second in MVP voting in 2023. And so I like Dak at plus 3,000, though. If I'm to shoot a dart on someone, I think that there's at least a much higher chance of that happening than a Penix. Yeah. Like, I just don't see the projection. But
all right, let's do offensive rookie of the year. So Ashton Jeanty is the favorite at plus 250. Not a surprise. Cam Ward plus 350. Who's your pick here?
Give me Jeanty. I mean, you're just taking the best overall skill player in the draft, not named Travis Hunter. And so Travis Hunter would actually be my second in line for this. I'm staying away from Cam Ward. I know that it typically goes to a quarterback, and so maybe he'll get it by default because of the lack of competition with other rookie quarterbacks out there. But the Titans are going to be a dumpster fire. Like, I just don't see, even in that division, the NFC South or AFC South, I don't see them making many strides from where they were last year in Cam Ward's rookie season. Not that I see the Raiders having a great season either, but Jeanty's volume and what he could bring to the table as a rookie, I mean, I think that he could get 1,200 yards pretty easily, 1,600 all-purpose yards, double-digit touchdowns. Like, I think that is very much on the table in a Pete Carroll offense. I trust him a lot more than Cam Ward.
I think Jeanty is a much better bet, but that's actually not who I would pick here. I would go with Amari Hampton at plus 1,000, 10 to 1 odds for all the reasons you just said. I mean, I think Hampton is a good running back. I don't think he's an elite prospect by any means, but he's entering an offense that wants to be one of the run heaviest offenses in the league with the Chargers. Greg Roman has had unbelievable success at getting even bad running backs to be efficient in his offense. I think Hampton is going to get a lot of touches. He's going to be explosive. Where he's not going to see very many stacked boxes. This is one of the best offensive lines in the league. And yeah, maybe he doesn't get to 300 touches because they do have Najee Harris, but man, it wouldn't shock me if he gets 250 carries and he's averaging, 5.2 yards per carry and it's double-digit rushing touchdowns and the Chargers make the postseason. I think Hampton's a really strong value at 10 to 1.
Yeah, I think that's a good bet as well. He's going to be on a good team. They should have a very good running game. Any interest in taking Tet McMillan at plus 1,500?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of receivers win this award over the last couple of years, whether it was Garrett Wilson, Jamar Chase. We had Odell Beckham win it. I think he's clearly the receiver that's going to get the most targets right away. And I think what we saw from Bryce Young in the second half of last year should be extremely encouraging. Could Ted McMillan get to 1,100 yards and 7 or 8 touchdowns? Absolutely. I think that's a really strong value.
I want to go back to Travis Hunter for a minute because at plus 1,000, it's good odds, but Travis Hunter was the best overall player in the class. Both you and I agree. But
yep.
you Marcus, you labeled him a generational player, and you don't give that label out to anybody. We know that he's going to play offense. We know that he's going to be opposite Brian Thomas Jr., who's already developed himself as a number one wide receiver in the NFL. Could there be a target issue there going around? Could he sneak some of that away from Brian Thomas? Brian Thomas can certainly take some coverage away from Hunter. Just knowing how talented he is. Trevor Lawrence is back and healthy. I like Travis Hunter at plus 1,000.
I do as well. The problem with Travis Hunter is I think he could have an 800-yard season and then play a lot on defense, have 3 interceptions, and we call it one of the greatest rookie seasons ever. But when we're talking about offensive rookie of the year alone, that's when it's going to get kind of hard because I just don't see any world in which he has like more yards and touchdowns than Tet McMillan. But I see Travis Hunter being the better player, which it makes this really hard. So I would rather take McMillan at 15 to 1 over Travis Hunter at 10 to 1. But you're also just betting on a generational talent. So I have no issue with that.
All right, let's move on and let's talk about defensive rookie of the year. And to no surprise, Abdul Carter is at the top of the list. 24 TFLs last year with Penn State. As a 21-year-old junior before declaring for the NFL draft, plus 250. He is the odds-on favorite by a mile here. And then you've got guys like Jalen Walker, Travis Hunter after that. Marcus, who is your pick for defensive rookie of the year?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to go with pass rusher. A pass rusher has won this award in, I think, 6 of the last 7 years. The only one that didn't do it was Sauce Gardner in 2022. So I think a pass rusher is smart. So you're looking at Abdul Carter, who's the clear favorite. The other top pass rushers, Jalen Walker, Mike Green, Mykal Williams. I don't think any of those guys are going to do it. Mm-hmm. And Travis Hunter at 12 to 1, it's hard because we just don't know how much he's going to play on defense.
Sure.
So Carter should be the favorite. He should be the overwhelming favorite. Should you bet on him at those odds? Why not? I think he is the best overall defensive player in this class.
Yeah, I'm not loving anybody else here. And that's the thing is I feel so comfortable about Abdul Carter in the situation that he's in compared to the rest of the pack here, where even if you are not a completely full-time player and you go as a part of a rotation at first, you're playing alongside Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence in the middle. They're going to move him around. He's going to get pressures on the quarterback. He's going to get cleanup stuff. He's just the best defensive player, not named Travis Hunter. But again, like Hunter, we have no clue how much he's going to end up playing defense this year.
No, I got one sleeper guy for you, Carson Swetchinger for the Cleveland Browns. We have had some linebackers win this award. He's going to be a day one starter for Cleveland, especially with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah missing the entire season. I wouldn't be surprised if Schlesinger just puts up, 100 tackle season. Maybe he gets 3 or 4 sacks and a couple turnovers. And if Abdul Carter only gets to 6 or 7 sacks, then maybe someone like Schlesinger, who's going to have an awesome defensive line in front of him, maybe he just is a too solid of a player to pass up. But at 40-1, not a bad value.
40-1, I like that one. That one snuck past me a little bit, but linebackers put up numbers as rookies. They're kind of like the running backs of the defense, so they can come in and have strong seasons right away, at least enough to catch the eye of AP voters here. So Schlesinger,
we like Schlesinger. He's a good player. You're not taking a bad player here.
Yeah, nope. I think that if you are to take the gamble, the high upside gamble on defensive rookie of the year, that it would be my pick as well. Marcus, let's move over to offensive player of the year. And there were 3 really hot names last year, each of which were more than deserving in Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Ja'Marr Chase. Ultimately, it went to Saquon. How could it not, for the 2,000-yard season and what the Eagles were able to do on offense? Who do you think wins the award this year? But what is the bet that you want to take?
So, first of all, this has been a non-quarterback award for the last 6 years. I think our last 7 years. Our last quarterback to win this award was Patrick Mahomes in 2018. Then we had Matt Ryan in 2016 and Cam Newton in 2015. So I will say there is some value here in just taking a Lamar Jackson at 40-1. Maybe he has such a good season that it's hard to ignore. Like if he has 50 touchdowns and the Ravens go 15-2, he might just win the MVP and the offensive player of the year. So I don't think that's a bad value. But if you're going with a non-quarterback, my favorite is actually Bijan Robinson at 16-1. For all the reasons that I said about Michael Penix. I think this is going to be a really, really good offense in Atlanta. They can run the ball extremely well. This is one of the best offensive lines in the league. And Bijan Robinson has been an awesome player from the moment that he stepped onto the NFL. I think he's actually a good bet to lead the NFL in rushing yards, which we'll get to in a little bit. But I like to bet on these young running backs who are just entering the primes of their careers with really strong offensive lines. I think Bijan Robinson's a good value.
Yeah, and Marcus, I got to take for you. I don't think that quarterbacks should win this award because a quarterback almost exclusively wins the MVP award. And so this should go to a skill player. I think it will go to a skill player. My prediction of who's going to win that this year is Ja'Marr Chase. After 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns, it was incredible. He had 118.9 passer rating when targeted last year. It makes you wonder why even throw to anybody else. But the bet that I like this year is taking Malik Neighbors at plus 3,000. So you get him at 30-1. Neighbors had 170 targets as a 21-year-old rookie with 3 garbage quarterbacks throwing him the football, and he managed to get 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns. Give me Malik Neighbors, and at least Russell Wilson is a respectable, capable passer. Maybe he's the 25th, 28th best quarterback in the league this year, but that's still quite the upgrade over Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock. Like, get him a guy that can get him the football consistently. If we can get a little bit of uptick there in efficiency from what we saw last year, he could explode for 1,500 yards this year.
You're right. This is a position that has historically seen a lot of guys come out of nowhere. Like, for example, Michael Thomas in 2019 won this award. And Michael Thomas was a solid rookie, but then 2019 has a monster season. Cooper Kupp the same way. Justin Jefferson had a fantastic start to his career, but I don't think anybody anticipated the year that he was going to have in 2022. And even someone like Saquon Barkley last year was not one of the top odds-on favorites to win this award. So if you're not taking a Ja'Marr Chase, at plus 900, plus 950, I don't think it's a bad idea to dip down here a little bit and take a receiver like Malik Neighbors. I'll mention Drake London at 50-1. Or if you want to go down even a little bit further, what about a Rashee Rice at 90-1? I mentioned the case for Patrick Mahomes earlier. What if Mahomes has that MVP type of season and it's Rashee Rice who has 15 or 16 touchdowns? So I think that's a good call.
Hey, Marcus, I'm surprised you didn't point out the fact that you think the Giants are probably going to be poor, and that's going to factor into that. It
doesn't matter too much, though. We've seen some bad teams here where the offensive player of the year still wins the award. I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
All right, so let's move on to the defensive player of the year. Anybody else you want to address? You're good there?
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay, let's move on to Defensive Player of the Year award. Let's talk about the front runner. Then we'll give our predictions here and what good bets you could take. Aidan Hutchinson is a front runner this year, coming off the severe leg injury and all. He was phenomenal before he got hurt, and I think he probably would have ran away with it last year. So you can understand why. But at plus 650, you're not getting incredible odds there. Who I think is going to win the award this year, Marcus. And again, I know I kind of have a feel for how these AP voters go about their business. TJ Watt's won it. Nick Bosa's won it. Myles Garrett's won it. Who's the best edge rusher in the NFL who has not won this award yet? It's Micah Parsons. And I think that if Cowboys have a respectable defense this year, if they finish with 10, 11 wins, that could be good enough. Parsons obviously missed the 4 games last year with a high ankle sprain. He's certainly a good enough candidate to win this award, obviously. And so I would go with Parsons winning it. What would you say to that? And then we'll give our bets here.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea because Parsons has been in the conversation every year that he's been healthy. I think the issue that you mentioned for the Cowboys is how good is this defense? Because we generally don't see average or to below average defenses win this award. But whenever Micah has been healthy, the Cowboys defense has been pretty good. So I think that's a good call. I think Micah should be favored over Aidan Hutchinson. I have some concerns about what Hutchinson might look like in year 1 recovering from that injury. It's not that he doesn't have the talent, because you're right. He was going to run away from that, or run away with the award last year. I just think plus 650, where there's so many good edge rushers in the league right now, I would go in that direction. And we should say that this has been an edge rusher award over the last couple of years. Now, it wasn't last year because we just didn't quite have the same edge rushing production. Myles Garrett had a good year, but it was on a bad defense. Trey Hendrickson led the league in sacks. He was on a bad defense. Micah Parsons missed 4 games. TJ Watt sack totals went down. So it's possible that another position could win it. But if I had to bet, I think it's going back to the edge rusher.
Marcus, this is one position I don't like to bet outside of the top few names, because it seems like there's always a cluster there. Like, if you go back a few years, you know that it was going to be like Aaron Donald, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt. It seems like the same thing is happening again now. Sure, last year it was Pat Surtain emerged late in the season. Trey Hendrickson was up there in Defensive Player of the Year voting. I don't know if that's going to happen again. I think it's going to take multiple factors. I just think it's going to go to one of Aidan Hutchinson, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, or TJ Watt. And so if you want to just bet those odds, would you bet the field against those 4 players?
Yes, I probably would, because there's a guy that I actually like the best here. I wanted to mention. He's just outside those guys, so it's close. I think Will Anderson at 12-1 is probably my favorite bet on the board. I'll make the case right now. Houston's defense was awesome last year. I mean, they were dominant. Will Anderson had a fantastic sophomore season. He's only 23 years old. This is a lot of times where these guys start to win this award when they turn 23, 24. I wouldn't be surprised. Will Anderson, one of the best defensive end prospects we've seen come out in the last several years. I wouldn't be surprised to see his numbers go from like 11 sacks to 16 sacks, and to see Houston be one of the top 2 or 3 defenses in the league. They've invested a ton of money into that unit. And if Anderson can just add a couple more cleanup sacks, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes home that award.
Will Anderson is excellent. And I think the Texans could obviously win their division. I just don't know if he's going to have the volume that those guys have. And in fact, there's debates on any given week who's the better edge rusher on that very team. Does that hurt him?
A little bit. You're right. Having Danielle Hunter there does hurt a little bit. I just won't be shocked if this is the year that Willie Anderson really breaks out. He's a household name, but in year 3, I think he's going to be 23 years old. This feels like kind of his time to take that next step.
I would like that if it was plus 3,000. I don't like it at plus 1,200. Honestly, I'd rather go, call me biased here, I'd rather go TJ Watt at plus 950. I think that guy's going to try to be back for blood this year. He's led the NFL in sacks 3 of the last 5 seasons. So he's going to want to try to put a stamp on this league one more time at least. It's a long shot for Watt even at this stage of his career. He turns 31 early in the season. but I just don't feel comfortable enough taking Will Anderson at those odds. That's just me. 12-1.
I got another guy, and this is a deeper guy. Sauce Gardner at 75-1 is another one of my favorite bets. And the reason why is he's already a high profile corner. He's a back-to-back all pro corner. Pro Football Focus just named him the best cornerback in the league this week. You're already starting to see some of that buzz. And now with Aaron Glenn in as the head coach, they're doing even more up front to increase the pass rush. This is one of the smartest defensive minds in the league. And if the Jets have a dominating defense and Sauce Gardner just posts another one of his typical Sauce Gardner seasons, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the same kind of love that Patrick Surtain got, where, yes, Surtain didn't have a bunch of turnovers or anything like that, but everybody just recognized how good he was on one of the league's best defenses. When you can take a two-time All-Pro player at age 24, 25 at 75-1, I'm going to do that.
This is nothing against Sauce at all, Marcus, but I do think that so many chips had to fall the right way for Pat Surtain to win that award last year. Denver had a terrific defense. Pat Surtain was the best cornerback in the league. He was super consistent. And TJ Watt had a down year. Micah Parsons got injured. Myles Garrett could have had it again. He was that good. But I don't know if I see a scenario where a cornerback wins this award twice in a year in an era with phenomenal edge rushers, maybe the best edge era in my lifetime. I just don't see it happen. Like, I really, truly think this is going to go to one of the top 4 edge rushers. Like, I think that these guys are going to have to suffer multiple injuries along the way for it to not. I like the thought process here, though, if you're trying to play the odds and get a good payout.
Yeah, you got to think about which defenses do you think could potentially outperform expectations, because that's what the Broncos did last year. They were a good defense that went to elite. I think Houston's defense with Will Anderson, very, very good last year. Maybe they go to elite. All it takes is one of these defenses, being number 1 or number 2 in points per game, and then that best player getting consideration. And when you're looking at 75-1, you just want guys that'll be in the hunt when we get into November and December. And I won't be surprised if Gardner does it, because he's already been there. During his rookie year, he got votes for Defensive Player of the Year, not just rookie, but Defensive Player of the Year. Again, not the guy that I would put all my chips on, but one that I would throw 1 or 2 on.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. Is that more intriguing than Danielle Hunter at plus 8,000?
Yes. Yep. Because I think part of it is the AP voters want to reward some of these younger guys that are up and coming. And I think we kind of know what Danielle Hunter is at this point.
Sure.
I think you're better off taking some of the guys in that range. And I'll give you another one. Derek Stingley, same draft class. Stingley had a fantastic year with Houston last year. I think he had 5 interceptions. I think him at 60-1, another good bet.
Yeah, I like the Stingley one. And again, the Texans situation kind of reminds me of the situation Denver was in last year, where it wasn't just Pat Surtain. It was like, oh, Nick Benito, you're having a really good season. Yep. Your odds shot way up. And so maybe it's one of those cases where it's like, it's not one person in particular. You got Will Anderson there, but maybe it's Stingley that ultimately pulls ahead if he gets a 4, 5, 6 interception season in addition to having a good year. Yeah, I like that 61. Yep. All right, let's go on. We're just going to talk about a couple stat leaders at this point here, Marcus. Let's start with, actually, comeback player of the year. Let's do comeback first. Who is your pick for comeback this year?
Aidan Hutchinson's the best bet. So rather than taking Aidan Hutchinson to win the defensive player of the year award, I think you're better off just taking him to win comeback player of the year at plus 250. He's tied with Dak. I think even if Aidan Hutchinson comes back and only has an 8 or 9 sack season, which would be, way low for him, but he's on a Lions team that's in the postseason and he makes a big difference on that defense. I think he is the favorite because we all remember that injury that he had in the Dallas game and how detrimental that was for the Lions defense. I think at even 85, 90% healthy, Aidan Hutchinson probably wins this award.
Yeah, but Marcus, how often does this go to a quarterback? Like we saw Kirk Cousins a couple years back. Wouldn't this go to Dak? Like Dak missed 9 games last year.
Maybe. I actually think if you're going to be betting on a quarterback, I think the best one would be Trevor Lawrence, because I think, first of all, the odds are way better at plus 450. And I think they just have a much better shot of winning their division. It has been a quarterback award, but I don't think we've had a player as high profile as Aidan Hutchinson go down in a while for a long period of time. That's why that would be my pick.
Yeah, the fact that they both have the same odds, give me Dak at plus 250 each. Because I think it's probably going to go to a quarterback again, but that's the other name that I had written down as kind of my dark horse here. Not too secretive, but Trevor Lawrence obviously missed 7 games last year. If he has a good season now that he's got Travis Hunter in the building, Liam Cohen's his offensive play caller, I like Travis Hunter if I'm playing the odds here, but none of them are like huge payouts here.
No, the other quarterback we should mention is JJ McCarthy. And this one might get a little tricky because he didn't play at all last year. So maybe the voters won't consider him a true comeback player. But it's worth mentioning he's plus 850. And I'm going to mention this one again, Rashee Rice at 12-1. I think he's going to be the leading receiver for the Chiefs. You get him at 12-1. If he leads the league in touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins the award either.
Yeah, the McCarthy thing, I wouldn't vote that way if it was me, just because he hasn't played an NFL snap yet. But yeah, give me Rashee Rice. Give me Rashee Rice at those odds. I'll put a few bucks on that for sure. All right, Marcus, let's talk about the NFL passing yards leader this year. Who do you have, and what bet would you make on this?
I take Michael Penix at 25-1 for all the same reasons. I think Atlanta's defense is going to be awful, and I mean awful. And they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And he's got the playmakers with Drake London, Darnell Mooney. We'll see what Kyle Pitts can do, but I think Atlanta's going to let Michael Penix throw the ball all over the field. And because they're going to get into a lot of these shootouts, they might not have any choice. We saw Penix, I think he averaged 34 passing attempts per game in the 3 starts last year. I think it could be even more than that this year. So maybe he's not as efficient as Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, but he just might throw the ball all the time in Atlanta.
Yeah, he definitely could. I like that bet as well. Who I think is going to be the passing leader is my same as my MVP vote this year. It's Joe Burrow. I mean, 4,900 passing yards last year. I don't really see that slowing down. And so we've talked about how bad their defense is going to be. Their defensive line is a nightmare right now. So he might have to get 5,000 yards by default. So I don't like really betting too crazily outside of this, if that makes sense, because I just think it's going to go to one of the guys at the top. It's very much how I feel about one of the edge rushers getting the Defensive Player of the Year award. I feel similarly about one of the top quarterbacks getting the passing yards. I like Baker Mayfield to do it, not as a real long shot candidate here, just because he is that gunslinger. He's got weapons to sling the ball around to. He's got Emeka Egbuka now added to the mix there. Give me Baker at plus 1,200. It's not a crazy payout, but I just think it's far more likely.
Again, you got to pick a quarterback here that's going to have a bad defense. It's going to force them into shootouts. Last year, Joe Burrow with the Bengals defense, which was, I think one of the worst, if not the worst. Yeah. 2023, it was Tua, Tua's defense in 2023 was awful. So you've got to pick situations where you think the quarterback is going to be in a shootout. I think Baker's another really good call because that defense has more talent than like Atlanta. But they're going to be in a bunch of shootout games, so that's not a bad call either.
All right, Marcus, let's move on to the rushing yard leaders this year. And to no surprise, Saquon Barkley leads the pack at plus 275. Derrick Henry follows at plus 400. Those are the clear and obvious favorites here. And then the odds drop down quite a bit after that. Who do you like for this bet to lead the league in rushing yards?
Well, it's not Saquon because you look at the history of running backs that have had more than 370 touches and what they do the following year. I mean, it is awful. And not only does Barkley have more than 370, he's at like 450 when you include the postseason touches. So he has a lot of wear and tear in his body. He's also not the youngest running back in the world. So I think I would want to pick a running back in a different situation. But Tommy, what makes this really difficult is you have to pick an offense that you think is going to be up in a lot of games because that's just the easiest path.
Yeah.
So is it Derrick Henry? Probably not, just because, again, you're betting on an older running back. Is it Jonathan Taylor? I don't know what to think about that Colts offense. I don't think it's Christian McCaffrey. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get enough carries. And this is where I come back to Bijan Robinson. I think you can tell that I really like this Atlanta offense this year. Bijan is going into year 3. He's 23 years old. One of the best offensive lines in the league. I think they're going to have to run the ball a lot as well. I think Bijan Robinson could average 5.5 yards per carry and take home the award.
If this was for the all-purpose yards, I think I would get behind that a little bit easier. But I mean, I think it's a respectable bet at plus 1,100. Derrick Henry is ageless. I don't know when he's going to slow down. It wasn't last year, and if not for Saquon's incredible season, his season got completely overshadowed by Saquon. I kind of feel bad for him in a way because he was fantastic. I mean, you watched him against the Dallas game just completely annihilate the Cowboys in the first half of that. I think Derrick Henry is going to lead the league, but at plus 400, it's not really a good bet to make. And so I like the Bijan bet better than betting Derrick Henry. And you talked about, yes, you get all the carries, the wear and tear. He's old. You're talking about a running back in his 30s now. He's like the last of like the true Hall of Fame running backs. Like, he is phenomenal.
He is. I wonder if Baltimore is going to do maybe a better job this year of trying to keep him fresh, right? They've got Keaton Mitchell, who's back from the injury. Obviously, Lamar will take some of that workload away. Maybe Justice Hill gets more work. I just don't know if he's going to get the same amount of touches as he's got last year. And that's why I keep coming back to Bijan, who finished third in rushing yards behind Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. He wasn't that far off last year. He had about 1,500 rushing yards, not scrimmage yards, 1,500 rushing yards. And that was with a pretty washed up Kirk Cousins in the first 12 weeks of the season. I just think this is, again, historically, this is an award that is won by 23, 24-year-old running backs. That's where I would go here.
Any interest in taking a bigger long shot than that, like a rookie, like Mario and Hampton at plus 5,000?
Yeah, that's probably the one. Although I do think the Chargers are going to use Najee Harris enough to probably take away some of those carries. I do have one long shot one, and it's Breece Hall, because I think Breece Hall is incredibly talented. And now you go from Aaron Rodgers, who wanted to throw the ball all the time in New York, to Justin Fields, and we know the history of bringing in these mobile quarterbacks and what they can do for the efficiency of a running back. I wouldn't be surprised if Breece Hall, 2 years now removed from the torn ACL, looks healthier. He sees, lighter boxes. They drafted Armand Membu in the first round this year, one of the best run blockers in the class. Maybe the Jets, I think this is the only way the Jets are going to compete this year, is if they just try to run the crap out of the ball and play defense. I think Breece Hall at 30-1, you're getting a very, very talented player on an offense that clearly wants to run the ball.
Yeah, if they're able to execute Aaron Glenn's game plan, I think that's a good bet as well. I like the payout there. And then we'll close up here, Marcus, with receiving yard leaders. We talked about how good Ja'Marr Chase was last year. He's at plus 600 leading the pack this year. Nico Collins following closely behind at plus 750, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. Justin Jefferson plus 800, CeeDee Lamb plus 1,000. Now, none of those are super intriguing payouts, especially considering that these guys are all going to be pretty closely knit at the top of the pack here. What is your best bet for NFL league leader in receiving yards?
Ja'Marr Chase should be the favorite, but again, they have T. Higgins. The reports about Jermaine Burton have been very positive in Cincinnati. If I had to bet, I would say Chase, but I really like Nico Collins at plus 750. You look at the last 2 years, Nico Collins is averaging 86 receiving yards per game, and that's kind of what you need to be able to do. Maybe go up in the 90s a little bit. No Tank Dell, who's going to miss the entire 2025 season. No Stephon Diggs, who played really well in the first couple games last year before he got hurt. Dalton Schultz isn't a big threat. They have some rookies that they're ushering in with Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins. And I think those guys will get targets. But Nico's going to average double-digit targets in this offense. He's got a really good quarterback in C.J. Stroud. I agree with him having the second best odds here.
Yeah, if Ja'Marr Chase plays 17 games, Marcus, I have a hard time seeing it go to anybody not named Chase, Jefferson, Nico, CD, maybe Puka. Puka just can't play that many games, though. No. So, but Ja'Marr Chase averaged just over 100 yards a game last year, which is a feat we very rarely see in the NFL. I think it goes to Chase, but because it's only plus 600 odds, if you want to take a bet that's a little bit better payout here, I'm going to go with a name I've already mentioned, Malik Neighbors. 170 targets as a 21-year-old playing with the worst of the worst quarterback situation last year. If he gets a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, better player passing him the football, which by default, Russell Wilson should be compared to what they had last year, even at 36 years old, Neighbors can go off for 15, 1,600 yards. Maybe that's enough to get it done. Maybe Chase misses a game. Maybe Jefferson misses a game. Maybe that's all that it takes right there.
Yeah.
Give me Malik Neighbors at plus 1,100.
I got one more for you. Tyreek Hill is coming off back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons, and then in 2024, he has the wrist injury that pretty clearly limits him. If he gets to 1,700 yards again, he's probably winning this award, right?
Yeah.
And I think Miami's defense is going to be downright awful with all the injuries they have. They've lost a bunch of guys in free agency, including Javon Holland. It sounds like they're going to trade Jalen Ramsey. Miami is going to just have to throw the ball a bunch. And if Tyreek can stay healthy, and it sounds like he has recovered from that wrist injury, he's such a good player that I wouldn't count him out at all. I know he's 31 years old, but why not? We've seen him lead the league in receiving yards twice. Wouldn't be shocked if he does it a third time.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. That's a good bet there as well. I like that one. Any other names you want to mention here before we wrap up?
If you're going really deep here, I don't mind AJ Brown at 25-1. If something were to happen with Devontae Smith, he's already one of the league's most efficient receivers. He's getting 1,300 yards every season, so he's not that far off. This Eagles defense would need to take a step back in order for him to get there, but at least you're taking a guy that is a bona fide number one alpha receiver there. Again, I don't love it, but that's probably where I would go.
Okay. Yeah. Terrific football player, at least. There's an avenue for that. All right. We are going to wrap up. We go live on the No Huddle show on Stacking the Box at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time every single Monday. So make sure you come back next week for more summer NFL fodder. Thanks for joining us on the show today, and we'll see you next time.